What is up, guys? I am back again. I know I just really did a stream a little while ago, but unfortunately, I deleted it. Oh, yeah, sad times for me. Um, but hey, I'm glad to still be here talking to you guys. Let's see, let me get everything fired back up again here. I did have a couple of people. Let me see if I can get the stream going back again. Damn. Alright, well, let's reshare this. Because I did a boo-boo. Woo-woo. Alright. 2 watching now. Must be my 2 that I actually have running right now. Well, let's copy and paste these back into my... Alright, tweet. And... yeah, I think I might have accidentally deleted it just a little while ago. Alright. I think I got everything back up and running. So, once again, guys, welcome back to my channel. Alright, there we go. Got it shared on my Facebook. Got it shared on my Twitter. Let's see if these people will retweet one more time. Yeah, it kind of still sucks that I did stream that game, Death Coming, from the Epic Games Store, and for whatever reason, there was copyright stuff that went flying out the door, and I had to mute some of the actual live stream, which kind of stunk. But, I'm sitting here looking at this, I had a little bit that I didn't get any kind of hits or anything like that, like copyright kind of hits. Thankfully, because that would have really sucked. It basically just said that, hey, you had some music on there you shouldn't have been playing. So, which that I didn't understand because it had to do, it was directly from the game. But, games that are out there that you really want to talk about these days, what are some of your favorite games from your favorite game consoles? Back from Atari. Doesn't matter if it's 2600, 7800. Heck, even if you want to go to the Atari Jaguar. I'm not as familiar with the Jaguar stuff. I did have a Jaguar, but I didn't have too many games when it came to it. So, wasn't a bad console from what I remember. That controller was absolutely horrendous, though. That was one thing about the Atari controllers and some of those older game consoles is people just didn't get the controllers that much. So when you're looking at, what was it, the Intellivision, the ColecoVision, some of those old classic ones where you had this big controller that had a bunch of numbers and buttons over it, and you had to get an overlay and put it on the actual controller drove people up the wall when it came to that. But, you know, when you look at the generation of the game consoles there, it was something people had to learn to use. Because you're talking about the old classic stuff. Now, when you had consoles like the Atari 2600 that came out, that pretty much got rid of that kind of thing, except for, I think, a couple of controllers they released for it. It was like night and day for a lot of people. They just get their joystick and just kind of go around and press a big old red button on the side of the joystick. So I had a lot of really good fun with that one. You know, Galaga, Space Invaders, and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, you know, things like that. Really improved on games like Pong and Pong and Pong. The whole 8-bit Nintendo. Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, Legend of Zelda. Probably one of the hardest games that I had on there was Fester's Quest. If you've never played Fester's Quest, you will hate life if you play it, but you'll have fun. Marble Madness was also a game that, you know, I had a lot of fond memories of. I actually ended up beating it as well on the Nintendo, so I really can't say never beat any games on the Nintendo, because I did beat that. Mario 1, 2, and 3. Mario 2, Super Mario Brothers 2 was kind of a pain in the butt to kind of beat. Mario 3, well, I went all the way from beginning all the way to the end and beat that game. Without using the magic whistles to get to the end. You know, once I found out about the whistles, oh, it was over. Getting my raccoon suit, my Tanuki suit. Those were some great games. Sega Genesis came out, and you had your Mortal Kombats, and you had Road Rash. Oh, I loved Road Rash. Road Rash was a great game. Then you start having the next generation of consoles come out. Super Nintendo with Super Mario World, Super Mario RPG. Really can't forget the Contras, like Super Contra. Can't forget the original Contra on Nintendo either. So those games were generation making games. Sega Genesis came out. Sonic the Hedgehog. All the way up to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. Which Sonic and Knuckles was kind of interesting, because you can take that little, you can flip that little lid and you can put other games inside of it, like, and get different levels. If I'm remembering correctly, it was different levels for finding gems and such. So, but it was a pretty crazy game. Obviously, like I mentioned, Mortal Kombat, Road Rash 3 was probably my favorite game. And then the world changed when the original PlayStation came out. Original PlayStation came out. It was supposed to be a collaboration console between Sony and Nintendo as an add-on for the Super Nintendo. And it didn't quite work that way, and Sony and Nintendo kind of parted ways. And, you know, they came out with the PlayStation. I think the Super Nintendo PlayStation, what was it? The prototype was recently sold. I think it was like $70,000 or $80,000 or something like that. It was found in this kid's father's, I think, his attic or something, and he was like, I know what this is. People hadn't seen the thing in like 20 years. So, maybe even longer, at 20, 25 years. So he put it online. You know, he wouldn't take anything less than like 150 or 200,000, and realized, hey, collectors are great, but gamers are broke. So, finally sold it. There were tons and tons of pictures that went out there. I, for one, kind of hope it winds up not necessarily in a collection, but maybe a museum of some sort, maybe a video game museum, as being one of the only Super Nintendo, PlayStation kind of consoles that are out there that anybody's going to find. I mean, that thing went for more than, say, Nintendo World Championships, gold or gray. So it's interesting to see things like those coming back from the past and really going out there for people to purchase them and see them. So next to that, you start looking at game consoles like the Nintendo 64. I absolutely hated that controller. But Nintendo has always been about innovation when it comes to their consoles. And everybody knows about Mario Party. You play Mario Party on the Nintendo 64, you had a dot worn in your hand because of having to try to play certain games, and you're going round and around and around and around with the joystick. Nintendo made so much money on that game because people had to replace their controllers pretty frequently because they got worn out, they got broken. N64 saw games like GoldenEye, probably one of the best shooters that you could possibly get on the console. Next to that, Perfect Dark was also a good release for it as well. But you also had, your Tony Hawk games being released on the PlayStation. They released Tony Hawk on the N64. I believe it was a blue cartridge, if I'm not mistaken. Or Tony Hawk 1. I don't remember if Tony Hawk 2 actually had a blue cartridge at all. But you also had your Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Those were classic games that you just can't repeat these days. Super Mario 64, that was a fun game. It was a really amazing game. Now, that's also where you see some of the worst games come out that were on the market, such as Carmageddon 64, Superman 64. Superman 64, a lot of people will argue between that one and E.T. for the 2600 as being two of the worst games being made. Carmageddon was up there as pretty darn bad as well. So, I have to admit, Carmageddon I never wanted to play. Now we start looking at Star Fox. Star Fox was my game. Super Nintendo, N64. Star Fox was the hotness. Do a barrel roll. Yes. Remember many of those different conversations I had with many of my friends about those games. Metroid. I wasn't the biggest Metroid player. I knew about Metroid and Samus and the whole controversy they had at the end of Super Metroid where they found out Samus was a female. And everybody was like, no, she can't be a female. But she was. And it kind of messed a lot of people up. So let me turn this down a little bit. Hopefully I'm not getting too loud or fuzzy for you guys. So Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. Love my Sega Dreamcast. You guys have seen in previous videos that I've released, firing up the old Sega Dreamcast and, checking out games like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, because they are remaking it. So that is awesome. And the fact that they're releasing it with the original soundtrack plus a couple of others is going to be great as well. Now, I don't know if they're cutting any of the songs. I've heard there might be one song that they cut. But I don't think it'll be the same without all of those songs. Just sitting here looking at the front, Burnquist, Campbell, Gilfberg, Hawk, Lasik, Muska, Reynolds, Raleigh, Steamer and Thomas. It looks like those are most of the skaters in the original game. 1,500 plus polygon character models. It's a far cry from the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands that we have now. I think in some cases there's millions of polygons. I don't even think they do polygon counts anymore when it comes to the games. You know, original Xbox. Loved many of the games in the original Xbox. Me and many of my friends got together and played Halo 1 and Halo 2. Those were our games to connect multiple game consoles to. So, Halo 2, me and my buddies in California, we would link together 4 Xboxes and play 16 players. Deathmatch. That's it. I don't think we played too many team matches. I think it was pretty much all strictly deathmatch. And I got pretty good at it. You know, when you run around and you have a plasma grenade in your hand and somebody comes around the corner and shoots you and guns you down, you get pretty good at throwing it at the same time and taking them out with you. So some of my friends got very angry with me for doing that a lot. They're like, I killed you. And I was like, I killed you too. So fun was definitely had on the Xbox. Other games that I really enjoyed: Knights of the Old Republic, Parts 1 and Parts 2. So while many of you may or may not have even played these particular games, if you don't have an original Xbox, you actually can buy these particular games on Steam. So they're not very much. I think they're like $5 or $10 or something like that. So yes, I know the mouse owns Star Wars, and BioWare is still floating around here. Obsidian is still floating around here as well. But they are still excellent games. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you should definitely go and pick those games up. Not going to be too much money. It's not going to break the bank. Not like when they first came out, when they were like $50-$60. If I'm not mistaken, I think those particular consoles are when the games really started becoming more and more expensive, more along the lines of $60, maybe as low as $30 or $40 for some of the games. PlayStation 2. Loved my PlayStation 2. I ended up modding it so that I could actually play some Japanese games, which it worked okay for. I'm not going to say it was the best one in the world, but it worked really well. I had a lot of games that I liked on there. Final Fantasy 11, I bought that just to kind of give it a try. Came with the big hard drive. I actually just recently sold it. I think I got like $75 for it with the hard drive, the original box, and the game and everything. I didn't play it that much. I think I played it for maybe a few days for like a free trial, and I took it out and put it in the box and stuck it in a closet, and occasionally brought it out to look at my collectibles more than anything else. Because I was a big collector at one point. I mean, I had over 700 games at one point. And I'm not talking about digital games. I'm talking about the physical cartridges and discs. I still have many games, but nowhere near what I used to, because I had to move and I needed money, and they ran out of room. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to grow up to some extent to get where you want to get, which is what really happened. And I just realized that I never took that big old teddy bear down in the back, so don't judge me on that one. It's just kind of there right now. But consoles of note that I loved, though, had my PlayStation 3, loved my PS3, had a Sega Saturn also, which I had a few games that I liked on the Saturn. I didn't like that you had to buy like this big giant cartridge as like a big memory card, that 4 megabyte or 8 megabyte memory card. Kind of like your PlayStation 2, only PlayStation was this big. It was a dinky thing, you just plugged it right in the front. The Saturn was the size of an N64 cartridge. So it sucked having that. And then if you wanted to play any kind of Japanese games, you actually had to get another cartridge, and then that would plug right in top of the other cartridge. I think it was like an action replay, if I'm not mistaken. And I was able to play. What was I able to play on Saturn? Super Dimension Fortress Macross. That was actually one of the coolest games I had actually played up until that point, Japanese-wise, because you can turn into 3 different variations of the Veritech. So you can be the robot, you can be the actual jet, and then you can be the fighter with the legs kind of facing down. You have the guns, and you still have the wings. So it's kind of like a transformer almost. It was definitely more than meets the eye. My PlayStation 3 had a lot of really good games on that one too. I think it's when God of War really started taking off more than anything else. Your Gran Turismos, Street Fighter, Street Fighter 4 was still big. I went to some tournaments in California for that and got my tail whooped pretty bad. And I was using an arcade stick. I thought I was good. I was wrong. Tekken, your Tekken games, Tekken got really, really big, hard, and heavy after the original PlayStation from Tekken 1, 2, and 3. Tekken Tournament Edition, or Tekken Tag Tournament Edition for the PlayStation 2. And was it Tekken 4? I think it was on the PlayStation 3. 5 is currently out on the PS4, but played a lot of those at my friend's house again. And I beat a lot of people. I got my tail whooped plenty of times. I made people mad. You know who you are, Jack. Eddie is still king. What can I say? Obviously, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One. I have all those different consoles. One I didn't mention, though, is a GameCube. GameCube had a weird, funky controller. But going from Nintendo 64 up to the GameCube, Super Smash Brothers. They went from a cartridge to a game. They were able to fit a lot more data on there, so they could put a lot more characters in there. So that's one thing that really stood out for a lot of people. And Smash Brothers is still great for multiple tournaments. Smash Brothers is still a big tournament draw when it comes to people. Now, on top of the consoles, as much as I love my consoles, I love my computer. Custom build my computer. I've never actually purchased an actual desktop. Laptops, yes, but more for schoolwork more than anything else. My desktop, which is what I'm streaming on right now, it's got Intel i7, got a really good NVIDIA RTX 2070 graphics card in there. I want to keep this thing up and running, which occasionally, once every 4 or 5 years, I have to do an upgrade. I do thank my friend for giving me a motherboard and processor and RAM to upgrade me from my 3rd gen Intel i7 processor. So I got a little bit more current kind of computer now. Next year, I may do an upgrade up to a 10th or even 11th generation Intel processor and motherboard. We'll see though, because I know it's a different chipset than what I have. And that's a different kind of nerd talk in terms of computer building more than anything else. I may have to do another stream on that, on things to consider when you actually are building gaming computers. Because you don't necessarily have to spend $3,000 to get a good gaming computer. You can skimp a little on the processor and get a much better graphics card, as opposed to going, $1,500, $2,000 on everything. So, but that's going to go ahead and do it for tonight, guys. Once again, I had already did a video, but I think it accidentally got deleted, so you guys can't come back and stream the other one. But I do thank you guys for coming, watching when you actually watch. If it's not a stream, a live stream, you can watch it later on. But until then, guys, keep in mind, be good, stay safe, stay healthy, and game on.